So Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 released about 2 months ago, and so far, since I've looked through it, basically since the day it came out, it is extremely good compared to its other chapters, and I'm not trying to hate on any of the chapters. Chapter 1 was actually really good, and I really enjoyed it when it came out, and honestly, it's just great. So we're going to be going into why Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 is way better than Chapter 2, and how it was a huge step up considering how Chapter 2 was, well, Chapter 2. Okay, so obviously I'm going to be going over horror, considering it's supposed to be a horror game, as the first aspect that we're going to look at. And the main horror aspect of this game was basically catnap and, well, the whole aesthetic. And it does match the other ones, but if we look at Chapter 2, just look at how unscary it is. It shows us all of the monsters immediately, so we don't have like the fear when they pop up or anything. We just get to see them all immediately, such as Mommy Longlegs just being shown off immediately. But when we see Catnap, we get a slight glimpse of him at the start of the game, and then go straight into gameplay, instead of being introduced to all the enemies. And here's the same thing with Huggy Wuggy. We see him at the start of the game, but we don't really get to friggin' play with him. Okay, that sounded really weird, but I mean like have him as an enemy really until later in the game, and where Huggy Wuggies, it's a chase, but in Catnaps it's a whole boss fight. So basically how the monsters are shown, yeah, and we do get to see Catnap a little bit too, but it's the same thing with Huggy Wuggy. We can see him hiding around the factory. So the horror aspect on this, I would give a solid probably 8.3 out of 10, because it does have pretty good horror, but I mean it still is pretty hard to make a literal game about toys scary. So yeah, there's some pretty non-scary parts kinda, but that's okay because, you know, it's still an amazing game. Now I'm going to talk about the setting. While it is still in the same factory, this game mostly takes place in Playcare, which honestly I am a little biased about, because I really do like in horror games when they put like these play areas, kind of like the daycare in Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach, for example. That's just a really fun part of the game. So basically these places are really fun to be in horror games at least. In real life it's just gonna be a ton of stinky kids, bro. But anyways, so that's where the game mostly takes place, in the Playcare, and I think it's actually genius to make a place for like the kids kinda, and then, well, that's basically what Poppy Playtime is about, the kids and stuff, and then, you know, it's all dark and abandoned. So in the Poppy Playtime, just Chapter 2, Chapter 1, and Chapter 3, all of the chapters, they do the setting really well in this factory, and it's just honestly amazing. So for the setting of where these take place compared to other horror games, I'm gonna give a solid 9.1.5, which is a pretty weird number. But the settings in these games, I mean chapters at least, there are technically different games, but it's downloadable DLC. So I'm going to give that a 9.1.5 out of 10 in this, for the setting of this big factory, which honestly is pretty good. And now I'm going to talk about the overall story, which I'm kind of gonna compare to Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach a little bit, because first of all, they're both open roam games, and also we have a companion which is kind of like in ruin, where we can get calls from, and this has to do with the story. And Ollie and, well, the mimic calling us over the phone or walkie-talkie, they are both very similar, and they both also do the same voice actor, which might be telling us Ollie's the prototype. So first of all, the story sparks a ton of different theories just because of how good it is, and then also the overall story is really good and really well developed, and is very much brought up during the course of the game, not just forgotten and going off into different side quests instead of not focusing on the actual story. So the actual story is very focused on, and the characters like Ollie, just make it even better. And Catnap, and Dog Day, and the other characters that show up in the game, they all make it very vibrant and pop out like other mascot horror games. Which, this is why the mascot horror genre is very appealing and honestly just a really good genre of games. So that was the overall story and characters, and honestly I'm gonna give this aspect probably a 9.3 out of 10, because honestly the overall story and the characters in this game are honestly extremely good and very well developed. Like, both of them are, the story and the characters, both very well developed. That's the second time I've messed up a word. Alright, so first of all, sorry for that very long name, but basically what I'm trying to say here is, in this universe, they use what will make sense in this universe very well to just make the game overall better. Like the red smoke, that is how Home Sweet Home, the entire section of the game, would make sense, because if we did not have the red smoke, that would not work. So basically, a lot of the horror aspects can only make sense, like Nightmare Huggy Wuggy and other stuff, including the red smoke, because that would just not make sense if it didn't have what we had already had developed in this game, including stuff like the grab pack. But also, this idea can be used in literally like every situation, in literally anything, but I think this game does that especially well with like the red smoke and stuff. So I'm gonna give the category of how it like uses its mechanics that it has already developed, I'm gonna give this section an 8.8 out of 10, because honestly it uses what it already has developed very well, and honestly this game has become amazing because of all of these reasons, and there's even more that I'm not gonna mention, but basically I think that's why Poppy Playtime became way better in chapter 3 and just way more amazing. So that was it, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. If you even made it this far, congratulations, you actually watched my videos for some reason. You really wasted your time. But anyway, I do know there's a lot of aspects I did not go over, and why this game is better. There's a lot more aspects, but I don't think I'm ever going to be able to go over those because, well, I don't make that much content, and honestly, I know this video isn't going to get that many views anyway, but just wanted to mention that. So, bye.